Hello, friends. Disneyland really needs to come up with a better phrase than that. So earlier this year, I did a ranking of every ride in the Disneyland park, and I thought it was really nice talking about all these rides and what I liked and didn't like about them. Of course, quite a few things happened between then and now. For instance, the Snow White ride received a major update. In my Disneyland ranking video, I put it pretty low despite actually kinda liking it. But with this new update and the fact that it has an ending with these good visuals and the fact that it feels like an actual Snow White ride, I think I'd actually move it up all the way up to number 16, right between Pinocchio and Alice in Wonderland. I really love this update. Another ride that received an update is the Jungle Cruise, which replaced all of the offensive scenes. It's a cool update, but not enough to change its placement in the ranking. As for the Haunted Mansion, they didn't update the bride figure, so I don't freaking care. But with that being said, I think it's time to talk about the other park, located right across from Disneyland Park, Disney California Adventure. This park opened in 2001 and has come a long way since then. While not everyone loves it as much as Disneyland, it still has a lot of things worth checking out. So as promised in my Disneyland ranking video, I will now be ranking every ride in Disney California Adventure. And just like with my Disneyland ranking video, I will not be counting transportation as rides, like the red car trolley. I'm not even sure if that's still a thing. I will also not be including shows. Well, except for one exception. Anyway, let's get to the ranking. Just Soren. Man. What even was the point of this? Like, why did they feel the need? Why did they think that this belonged in this park? Like, I just don't get it. Like, what were they thinking with this? Okay, so in this park called Disney California Adventure, they had a ride where you fly over the state of California. Very popular, made a lot of sense for the park, and and then they just decide to get rid of it for this. I mean, just like, why? What sense did that make? Now, I don't have a problem with the concept of flying over the world. It's actually a pretty cool concept, just not a good concept for this park. Like this version also exists in Epcot, and there it fits very well. But here, in a park dedicated to California, just yeah, I don't know why they did this. And that's not the only reason why I think it doesn't work. Like even in terms of quality, it is a huge step backward from what was previously there. In the original ride, I always felt like I was flying over California. Like it felt like an actual experience. Like felt like I was actually really flying over these areas. But with Soaring Around the World, it just feels too cinematic for me. Like it feels like you're watching a movie. It doesn't feel like you're actually flying, and just really takes me out of it. Soaring Around the World relies too heavily on CGI, and yeah, California's version had some CGI moments in it, like with the golf ball, the hang glider, but the CGI in this newer version just looks really, really bad, including those annoying transitions from scene to scene. It really makes me miss the jump cuts of the original. Yeah, the jump cuts weren't perfect, but it didn't like take me out of the film or anything. They were just there, and like it didn't really, like, they weren't really that annoying all that much. I also felt like the music wasn't as grand. Like they clearly tried to capture the magic of the Jerry Goldsmith score, but but it just didn't have as much of an impact. It's also clear that they couldn't get permission to film in some of these areas. Like look at this Taj Mahal scene. My God, it just looks so fake. It looks way too CGI'd, and oh my God, it just looks so bad. Soarin' Around the World is not the worst theme park attraction I've ever been on. It's not even the worst Disney attraction I've ever been on. Like in my lifetime, there have been worse Disney attractions I've experienced, like Stitch's Great Escape, and I guess that's it. Soarin' Around the World kind of sucks. But what doesn't make sense to me is that ever since this ride opened, they brought back Soarin' Over California at least twice already. They clearly know a lot of people prefer that version over this new one, yet they still decide to keep this one. Like, you can't, like, why do they keep going back and forth like that? Honestly, just make a decision. Like, honestly, it just doesn't make sense. Honestly, I would rather they just keep the original version, honestly, because that one clearly has a larger fan base. I know there are fans of this new one, but honestly, but for me, it just really doesn't work, and easily the worst ride in the entire Disneyland Resort, not just California Adventure, but yeah, the entire Disneyland Resort. If you were to ask someone to list all the rides at California Adventure, chances are Jumpin' Jellyfish would be one of the last ones they bring up. I rarely hear anyone ever talk about this ride. It's just so forgettable. I even hear Golden Zephyr talked about more than this. Honestly, there's just really nothing worth mentioning about this one. Yeah, people will say, "Oh yeah, it's a kids' ride. Who cares? It's supposed to be for kids and whatnot. Kids will enjoy it." No, 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 no. Kids deserve better. It's just a slow-moving ride that goes up and down. I'm not expecting a thrill ride or anything, but it's just very boring. I think even kids might find it boring. You do get kind of a view of Paradise Park, but it's not really that great of a view, and you could get a better one on the pal around. There's really nothing worth going on this ride for. This is not a very fun ride, and there are better rides you could take your kids on. Like, honestly, this one's just not really worth doing. Man, I'm kind of disappointed that this one is so low on the list. I was excited for it. It had a lot of potential, but yeah, it was kind of a letdown. So yeah, number 18 is the newest attraction in the park, and that's Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure. Like when you think of a Spider-Man ride, you think intense action, like maybe some of the iconic villains, like who's in it? Do we have Electro? Do we have Green Goblin? Do we have Lizard? How about none of the above? There are no villains in this ride at all. Instead, we have these little robotic spiders that the riders have to shoot in order to stop them from causing a bunch of destruction on the campus. I don't know why they went this route with this ride. I guess it can be a little fun, like seeing how high of a score you can get and having to constantly shoot the spiders. It's pretty fun, but man, Spider-Man deserves better. And basically what this ride is just Toy Story Mania. It's basically just a 3D carnival game where you just have to constantly move your arms to shoot spiders, and it gets tiring after a while. I remember when this ride was first announced, they said it uses state-of-the-art technology. And what technology are we talking about here? Xbox Kinect. It's not even the first ride to use it. Like, there's a Lego Ninjago ride at one of the Lego lands. It's not even original. Personally, I think the pre-show is better than the actual ride, not just because seeing Tom Holland is an absolute delight, but because there's a bunch of Easter eggs hidden in there that I think are fun to look at. It's a fun ride on its own, but for a Spider-Man ride, it could have been a lot more. An example of an actual good Spider-Man ride can actually be found at Universal Orlando. I know I shouldn't compare two different rides at two different theme parks, but they're both Spider-Man rides. You can't expect someone to not do that. Universal Orlando's version is the superior version. Yeah, it uses a lot of screens, but it also uses practical effects, and it has the iconic Spider-Man villains, and it has a bunch of action in it. It's just so much better. Spider-Man is one of the most iconic comic book characters, so this should have been better than it actually was. On a side note, I'm really excited for Spider-Man No Way Home. That trailer looked really awesome. Grizzly River Run is meh. It exists. It's not the best raft ride out there. The scenery is bland, and even though there's 3 drops, everything in between is just not very exciting. It's still great to go on if it's hot outside and you want to cool off by getting wet, but other than that, there's nothing really noteworthy about it. Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind is one of the rides located at Pixar Pier. Basically what it is a spinner ride where you ride in these baskets and... Wait, this looks familiar. Oh, that's right. This is a redecorated version of Flick's Flyers, which used to be at Bugs Land. But of course, since Bugs Land closed for Avengers Campus, they decided to just move this ride over to Pixar Pier. I don't know why I find that hilarious. Anyway, I love how well decorated it is. There's a lot of details, like with the orbs, and I just love the statues of the characters from the film. It also looks very beautiful at night. And the ride itself, it's a spinner ride. I mean, what more can I say about it? It pretty much serves its purpose. Not really trying to be this major e-ticket thing or whatever. Would I have preferred if Inside Out had gotten a better ride? Yeah. Am I mad that this is the ride that they went with? No. I think it's cool that Disney has some rides that are geared mostly towards children, and this is a solid addition to the park. I think it works well. Jesse's Critter Carousel is a carousel located at Pixar Pier, and it used to be called King Triton's Carousel back when it was Paradise Pier. Of the two carousels at the Disneyland Resort, this, in my opinion, is the better one just because of the theme. Yeah, it's another typical carousel that doesn't really stand out from other carousels, but man, I just love riding these critters and listening to that Jessie cowgirl music. It's just really adds to it. I think it's a pretty fun ride for both children and adults. Okay, technically this next one isn't a ride, but I still wanted to include it because I really wanted to talk about it, and that's Mickey's PhilharMagic. This 4D show is located in the theater right across from Monsters Inc. This theater also used to show Muppet Vision 3D before it got replaced by Frozen Sing-Along, before it got replaced by movie previews. So to sum it up, if Frozen wasn't so popular, Muppet Vision 3D would still be here. California Adventure. It still exists at Disney World though. So yeah, clearly movie previews weren't enough to occupy this theater, so they needed to bring in a new permanent show, and their solution was to bring in Mickey's PhilharMagic, a show that already exists in Magic Kingdom. The problem is this theater wasn't made to hold something like PhilharMagic. Look at Magic Kingdom's version. That show has some effects that fit very well in that theater, but with this one they clearly had to cut corners. Like, the screen doesn't expand. Instead, they just use those projections on the walls, which aren't really that impressive. The footage isn't even big enough to fit the whole screen. Like, that whole top part is just blank. I don't know why they approved that. Granted, the DCA version still uses some effects like the scent of the food, the water splashing on you, Donald's butt sticking out of the back wall. If Disney expanded the building, which they probably don't have the money or room to do, this could have been up there with the Magic Kingdom version. Anyway, I had to bring up the effects first because without the effects, the show is just fine. Like, the effects really do a lot to enhance the show, which is why I think the Magic Kingdom version is really good. But in the DCA version, you don't have all the effects there, and it just leaves you watching just something that's just passable. Basically what it is Mickey is about to conduct an orchestra, but Donald loses the sorcerer's hat and he ends up in these musical numbers from various Disney movies. So yeah, the title of the show is totally clickbait because the focus is on Donald and we don't even get to see the actual orchestra. We only see like a bit of it at the very end. I really like the movie and song choices they went with for each scene, but they mostly just focus on the Disney Renaissance films, and the only two Disney movies that aren't from the Disney Renaissance film, which are Fantasia and Peter Pan, are just very short. Oh wait, that's right, they recently introduced a new Coco scene. I haven't seen it myself in person yet, I watched the video on YouTube, but it actually looks pretty cool. I'm glad they added it, though I still think putting a Pixar movie in there kind of was out of place. But I get it. But if it were to be any Pixar movie, I guess it had to be Coco because that one has a heavy reliance on songs, so it makes sense in a way. The other movies included in the show are Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Lion King, and Aladdin. These scenes are pretty entertaining, but the Little Mermaid scene kind of weirds me out for multiple reasons. 1. Donald falls in love with Ariel even though he has a girlfriend, it's Daisy. 2. Nothing is stopping Donald from getting the hat, but he gets distracted because he loves Ariel. And 3, just the idea of anyone falling in love with Ariel. Just no. Mater's Junkyard Jamboree is one of the 3 rides in Cars Land, and it's a lot of fun. I really like this ride. In a way, it's kind of similar to the teacups, except you're not in control, and whenever it makes a turn, you like are like sliding in your seats. Like that's my favorite part. I just love that. Depending on what your feelings towards Mater are, you may or may not enjoy this because it features him singing songs during the ride. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one. It's just a lot of fun. So, as I stated earlier, I'm not much of a fan of Jumping Jellyfish, but the ride that's right next to it I think is pretty solid, and that's Golden Zephyr. Yeah, there's not much to it, you're just riding in these rocket things and going around in circles, but it's just such a good feeling when you're actually on it, like you feel the wind in your face, and you get a good view of everything. I don't see how anyone can hate this ride. It's pretty underrated. I don't hear people talk about it that much, but it's just really something that I think all families can enjoy because it's just so much fun. It's not the best ride in that area, but it's still worth going on. I'm sure people were hoping this one would be lower in the ranking, but yeah, Incredicoaster is number 11. As a roller coaster fan, I find it very exciting and thrilling to ride, like with the launch and the drop and the loop. For that alone, I just really have a lot of fun with it, and I really like it. But as far as the theme goes, it's kind of hit or miss. Back when it was California Screamin', it wasn't trying to be anything more than a roller coaster. It was just a regular roller coaster that didn't have a theme. But with the opening of Pixar Pier, they decided to theme it to The Incredibles. The story here is The Incredibles get a roller coaster dedicated to them, but then Jack Jack gets loose and the family has to catch him while people are on the roller coaster. So yeah, it's basically California Screamin' with The Incredibles name over it, and this leads to some of the worst meta humor I have ever heard. The story also doesn't really make sense. Like, if something bad were to happen on a roller coaster, they wouldn't just let the riders continue riding. It would just stop and they would get evacuated. But nope, they just let this super powerful baby on the loose in this roller coaster with the potential of possibly injuring the riders. Kind of dark when you think about it. The Incredibles themselves can be seen in the ride itself in 3 tubes, but they're just static figures, and they kind of look cheap if I'm being honest. The most laughable part is seeing duplicates of Jack Jack on these sticks. Like, yeah, I don't know how that got approved. I know it seems like I'm hating on this ride, but I still really like it. I think it's a very awesome roller coaster, even though the theming isn't very good. But my god, it looks amazing at night, especially that third tube with the fire and the force field. That just really looks amazing. Plus, hearing that Michael Giacchino music while riding this is just, sorry for the pun, incredible. And that makes 3 rides in the Disneyland Resort with Michael Giacchino music. He is such a legend. People seem to really hate the Monsters Inc. ride, but honestly, I never really got it. I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, it's basically the movie but in ride form, but it definitely looks like someone who just really loves the movie because this ride really does a great job at capturing what made the movie so amazing. It's very heavily detailed, like with the scenery and the doors and the characters. Man, as a Monsters Inc. fan, I really appreciate it. It is just very well done. There are parts of the movie that are skipped, but without those parts, the story is still very clear. Some of the scenes that I really like include Randall disappearing and appearing in the bathroom, Boo hitting Randall over the head with a bat, and the animatronic Roz at the end who talks to the guests. That's just very funny. So yeah, it's a good ride and a good summary of the movie, but I have to ask, where is Waternoose? He was a very important part of the movie, yet he's not in it at all. I don't know, this might just be me, but I really like Waternoose. I think he should have been in the ride. It would have been cool to see an animatronic Waternoose. I mean, yeah, he's a great villain. But but it doesn't ruin the ride. Still really good though. A wise crab once said, "The human world is a mess." And to this day, he cannot be any further from being wrong. We're about to go under the sea with our number 9 spot, The Little Mermaid, Ariel's Undersea Adventure. Just like the Monsters Inc. ride, it's a summary of a movie, which in this case is The Little Mermaid. It has a lot of details from the movie, which can especially be seen during the Under the Sea portion, which is my favorite part of the ride. The reason I have this higher than Monsters Inc. is because it has such a relaxing feel to it, and it really feels like you're underwater, and I don't know, I just love having the feeling of being underwater. Not to mention the animatronics are really great. Yeah, Ariel kind of looks like a doll, but the movement of her is just really great and smooth. And of course, there's the Ursula animatronic, which, in my opinion, is one of the best animatronics Disney has ever made. I mean, just look at this thing. It just moves so flawlessly. It just looks very real. My God, I'm just really impressed with it. Of course, since they can't fit the whole movie into the ride, they had to cut some things. Like King Triton doesn't show up until the very end, even though he's essential to the story, with like having that whole argument with Ariel about going up to the surface. There's also that scene where Ursula tricks Ariel into giving up her voice to get legs because she's such a dumbass. But that scene is kind of just downgraded to just Ursula talking about it, and we don't even get to see her actually interact with Ariel. Plus, the entire climax of the movie with giant Ursula and Eric impaling Ursula despite him not having any kind of development at all. Like, all of that just removed. Like, yeah, it's really unclear how we get from like Kiss the Girl to like the next parts. Honestly, I like yeah, it just didn't really work that well in my opinion. But this is still a very good ride, especially if you just want to get out of the hot sun and air conditioning. But yeah, aside from that, it's just so much. It's just really good and really beautiful. Has really good scenery, animatronics, and if you're a fan of The Little Mermaid, you might really like this ride. Now I know what you're thinking. What's Rollickin' Roadsters doing this high up? Rollickin' Roadsters is a very fun ride. This wasn't the first ride to occupy this space when Cars Land first opened. Like there used to be that ride called Luigi's Flying Tires, which was kind of a disaster of having to control those tires on this air hockey type floor. It was just basically an attempt to bring back that flying sausage ride that they used to have at Tomorrowland. Rollickin' Roadsters is a much better use of the space. This is technically Disneyland's first trackless ride. Technically, they would use this technology better in Rise of the Resistance, and again in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. But this is a great way of testing it out, and even for like just a way of testing it out, it's so much fun. Not a lot of rides have you riding in dancing cars that move in a choreographed fashion and end with you spinning around. That's what makes this special. Not only is the ride itself good, but there's a lot to look at in the queue. There's just so many details that I think are very interesting. Probably not the most popular opinion, but I don't care. I really like this ride. Aw yeah, Silly Symphony Swings, a ride based on my favorite Mickey Mouse cartoon, The Band Concert. Yeah, it's basically just one of those swing rides that you see at a fair or a carnival, but I always love those rides, so that's why this is so high up. The things that really stand out about it are the characters painted onto the ride and the music that plays as you're riding it and the conductor Mickey figure on top. Plus, that gives you the feeling that you're in the tornado that was shown in the cartoon, and I've always loved that scene because it's such a classic. So yeah, that's pretty much Silly Symphony Swings. A lot of fun with going around a circle, wind in your face, and that tingly feeling as you go up and down. I just really like it. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about number 6 and number 5 because this is technically the same ride but with two different experiences. So number 6 is Pixar Pal Around non-swinging, and number 5 is Pixar Pal Around swinging. Since every person is different, some people might prefer the non-swinging side and other people might prefer the swinging side. Depends on if you're looking for something more thrilling or you just want to relax. The non-swinging side is definitely great for people who just want to go up high and look at the views of California Adventure. And for that, I think it serves its purpose. So yeah, the non-swinging side is definitely for people who just want to ride the Ferris wheel like a normal Ferris wheel, not really anything more than that. For me personally, I really prefer the swinging side. I just love the feeling of just swinging around while it's suspended. That's so high up. I don't know, it's just, I laugh a lot when I'm up there. Just like with the swinging side, you still get to see the views of California Adventure, but you just probably be more focused on screaming while swinging. So regardless though, I still enjoy going on both sides because both of them are good for different reasons. Sometimes I just want to sit down and relax and take in the views, and that's what non-swinging is best for. And sometimes I just want to have more thrill going on. so then I go on swinging. I think it's cute that the gondolas have Pixar characters painted onto them, but one thing that bothers me is the fact that they still have a Mickey head on the front. That doesn't make sense to me because this is the Pixar Pal Around. But anyway, Pal Around is a lot of fun and worth going on. Alright, Toy Story Mania, the better 4D interactive ride. First things first, that animatronic Mr. Potato Head out front is awesome. Gotta get that out of the way because, yeah, I just really like it. So as I stated, it's a 4D interactive ride where you have these guns and you use them in a variety of games such as ring toss, breaking plates, popping balloons, darts, etc. I really love the fact that each game is different. It adds more variety, unlike Web Slingers where you're just shooting robot spiders the entire time. Each ride through is a different experience, not just with the shooting and getting different points, but you might see something new each time because there's just so many details. In between the shooting games, you see some board games and other things that make you feel like you're the size of a toy. Unlike the Buzz Lightyear ride, it's not the kind of gun where you just have to pull the trigger. No, it's actually a gun that has a pull string, and to get the highest points, you just gotta keep spamming it. Years later, Knott's Berry Farm would open a ride similar to this called Berry Tales Return to the Fair, which is a 4D interactive version of an old ride that they used to have. That ride is also very enjoyable, and I recommend it to anyone who goes to Knott's Berry Farm. I absolutely love Toy Story Mania, and it's definitely one of the best rides in DCA. Kicking off the top 3 is Goofy's Sky School. This is basically a Wild Mouse coaster, but I really love Wild Mouse coasters, and this is no exception. Despite how short the ride is, it's still very thrilling, when you're making those turns at the top and it feels like you're gonna fly out of your seat. It's such an intense feeling. Even though I see those turns coming, they still catch me off guard because of how sudden they are. Same goes for the drops. I just love the feeling you get when you go on the drops. Goofy's Sky School is great. What more can I say? Life is indeed a highway that leads us to our number 2 choice, Radiator Springs Racers. This is hands down one of the best dark rides in the Disneyland resorts. With the animatronics, the scenery, the thrills, oh my god, it is just so amazing. It's just really impressive how they managed to bring these talking cars to life. They just look so lifelike and their movements are just so fluid. The only issue I have with them is that some of them have projected on mouths. I don't really get the point of that. It kind of looks bad and jarring because not all of them have projected on mouths. So why not just give all of them physical mouths? I don't know, but I don't know. It just kind of looks weird to me. The way the ride starts is also just very amazing because you get to see the rock work and this waterfall, and it just all looks so beautiful. On the inside, you can see the characters from the movie, like Lightning McQueen, Mater, Sally, and then there's this part where you can go where your car goes to one of 2 sides. You can either go to Luigi's Tires or you can go to Ramon's paint shop. Personally, I prefer Luigi's Tires. I'm assuming the timeline of this ride takes place in between the first 2 Cars movies because Doc Hudson is still alive. Obviously not voiced by Paul Newman this time because, well, And then there's the racing portion. This part is brilliant. It's fast, it's thrilling, and there's a chance that you can either win or lose, so there's actual stakes. And it's not a regular ride. It's really an experience. The ride does tend to get a long line most of the time, and that could be a problem for some, but not for me, because I use the single rider line. It makes things so much easier. And of course, the number 1 best ride in Disney California Adventure, of course, it's obviously Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Oh my god, like what other choice? This is a no-brainer. It's no contest. This should be objective. It's an amazing ride, honestly. It's everything you could ever want. It's just, honestly, there are people who hate this ride. I don't know. I don't understand that. Honestly, there is just so much to love about it. It's just so amazing. Honestly, if you don't like this ride, I'd like to have a conversation with you because this is just so much fun, so much rewritability, so much details, so much everything. Oh my god! Like I'm not just saying this because I'm a Guardians of the Galaxy fan or a Marvel fan. Even without that, even if I weren't, I would still think this is amazing because it really is a lot of fun. As you already know, this ride replaced Tower of Terror. I'm sure some people still miss it, but for me personally, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is an improvement in almost every way. When you're in the queue, you really feel like you're in this outer space museum type place, like seeing all these creatures in cages, like the dog and these things, I forgot what they're called, but but they just look really cute. Then you enter the office where you get orders from Rocket Raccoon, who needs us to get our hands scanned to help save the Guardians. There's also this funny part where he grabs the Walkman. I really like that. Then you enter the boiler room and they take you to the transports, and from there it becomes a wild ride. This ride is a lot more intense than Tower of Terror. Like, while there's slow moments in Tower of Terror, this one is just non-stop thrill. Just like constantly going up and down really fast for a couple of minutes, and then you see Guardians just trying to break out and doing all these kinds of antics, and it's different each time. There's 5 different songs that they choose randomly, and each song gives you different scenes. Anyone who is a Guardians of the Galaxy or Marvel fan will have a high appreciation for this ride because they love seeing these characters, and it's the humor that we've grown accustomed to, though this one joke is kind of questionable. What is it with these rides and pointing out their own flaws? To wrap it up, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, great ride, absolutely amazing, tons of fun, really recommend it, anyone will love it. So that's every Disney California Adventure ride ranked, and as you can see, not a lot of them are very great, but they're still good enough to make this park worth going to. Because of the popularity of Disneyland, DCA doesn't really get that much attention compared to it. But honestly, I really like this park. I think it's underrated. While not as great as Disneyland, there's still a lot of enjoyment here that people can have.